I'm here.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Doing great.
Good to hear.
Sorry for the delay, guys. Man,
Oh,
I had people in my office. I was standing up, pushing them out the door.
It's no worries.
popular guy right here.
Occasionally. Uh,
Yeah, I didn't mean to rush you if it seemed like I did. I was just checking.
oh no, 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 no. I've been ready, and then I had a JV coach come in, and then the women's coach come in. They had a million questions, and I kept saying I got to do this thing, and my boss came in to introduce me to a new faculty member, and on and on and on. So we're good now.
All
Plus, I
right.
got to be home at a certain time
Yeah.
today. So I've got 45 minutes in the truck, so I'm good.
All right. All right. We'll get started then. So, Coach, the first question I always ask the guests here is how did you get to where you are today?
You mean as far as in the coaching world?
Yes, sir.
I actually I went to work at a boys' home, um, in the school at a boys' home, and my very first day I walked in and they were having a big meeting and they said, okay, let's talk athletics. And they said, Gary, you played college basketball. You're going to be the new basketball coach. And so that's how I got my start coaching. And it was high school. And then years later, I quit coaching to watch my son play in high school. And the coach at Grace, at that time Grace Bible College, uh, he and I got to be friends, and he asked me to come on as an assistant. And my son thought it'd be a good idea, so I came on and I coached with him almost the entire year. And then he resigned, and they asked me to finish out the year, and I did. And then they asked me to come back for 1 year, and I did that, and we won the national championship that year, and so I was kind of hooked after that.
So, going to your playing days, what athletes did you look up to growing up?
Um, I I had quite a few. Believe it or not, I looked up to when I was in junior high. I looked up to the high school players, um, and I can remember, as a kid, there were two specific, and my best friend and I would fight on who got to be who when we were playing out on the court. And probably pro player was probably Dr. J. And then I was about the same age as Larry Bird and Magic Johnson going through college at the same time. So, I still looked up to them quite a bit.
So, going up, I mean, you played college basketball. So, what was your typical off season like? I mean, with you like working out or going to play places?
Um, I had a full scholarship, and um, my school was about 500 miles away, so the coach let us do our own summer stuff. Didn't make us be on campus, so I did. But I worked a lot. I mean, at a job, because I wanted to have some spending money in college. But typically try to put in 2 or 3 hours a day, um, either lifting or just playing. It wasn't like today where everybody's got their own personal trainer.
So that leads me to my next question. So, have you taken any of your off season or even preseason workouts that you had as a player into your programs that you've been coaching at now?
Not so much off-season training, because again, back then you didn't do as much as they do now. But I did take a lot of. I had a great high school coach, and he. I just loved the way he ran practices and so forth, and I really geared my coaching practice style after him.
Mm.
I got an interesting story, if you got time, about my high school coach.
Yeah, go ahead.
And just talking about the respect that players have for coaches. In 2018, I went with my wife down to Southern Ohio, where I graduated high school, to my 40th class reunion, and that was on a Saturday. But on Friday, everybody went to the football game, and I was standing along the fence around the football game, and I saw my old high school coach, and I hadn't seen him in 39 years, 40 years. And when he came up, I reintroduced myself to him because he was a little bit older, and I talked to him for a few minutes. And when I was all finished, my wife looked at me and she said, "What in the world got into you?" I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I've never heard you talk like that before in your life." I said, "I was petrified. You know, not like he was going to make me run sprints or do push-ups or anything. It was just, I had so much reverence for this guy and respected him so much that I didn't even want to say it." She said, "You just kept saying, 'Yes, sir, yes, sir,' all that." But it was just funny that even after 40 years, it kicked back in, to my old coach. But anyway, I'll let you guys go ahead.
That's a great story. Do you watch a good amount of basketball still?
Say that again.
Do you watch a good amount of basketball still? Like, I mean, NCAA and even like NBA stuff?
I do. There are certain teams that I like to watch. I mean, obviously, I'm a Buckeye. I like to watch Ohio State. I love Michigan State. Still not a big fan of Michigan. But I like to watch college. I hardly watch any pro basketball anymore. To me, it's kind of gotten like big-time wrestling. It's kind of, it's almost theatrical to me.
Yeah.
But I do like to watch college. I like to watch, small college basketball, that kind of thing.
So my follow-up question is, who've been some of your favorite players that you've liked to watch from those programs that you mentioned in the past couple of years?
Yeah. I've always liked, in the past, I always liked watching Duke's players or North Carolina's. I just, like that style. Like I said, I've been a fan of Michigan State. Cassius Winston, super nice guy. He's been in our gym before playing. I like the way Tom Izzo runs, his offense. The kids play so hard. Standout players, not so much individual players anymore because I watch such a wide variety. So it'd be hard to pinpoint one player.
Landon, we'll go over to you.
All right. So you've spent going on 18 years now of coaching at Grace, and you've had a lot of success throughout all 18 years. So how have you kind of built such a consistent team over that period of time?
I'm going to say it was all culture. We tried to keep the first things first, and I have a real. I've never explained that a different way. We played a big school, big Division II school. They actually won the national championship 3 or 4 years ago, and we beat them. And the reporters came and asked me, "Man, Coach, how are you doing it? You can't get scholarship. How are you building this in?" My answer was this: my players are happy. I try to keep basketball in its place. We don't, do 10-hour days and all that. Practice. Give the guys, time to do their studies or go to a movie or play video games or spend time with their girlfriend or, whatever's important to them. And I've just always felt like anything that you do, if you're happy doing it, you do it better. So culture, keeping the guys happy, never allowing the team to be one player over another. Player 1 is not going to be treated different than player 15. And keeping the culture that way where everybody has a job and everybody, we try to get them to do their job really, really well. Even if it's just if it's the guy, grabbing towels and water during a timeout. job when it's your time to do your job. So it all comes down to culture, I think. So and that's where our successes come from.
Yeah. So one thing I like about all coaches that we have on here is kind of just talk a little bit about the coaching philosophy that you have as a coach.
Are you talking X's and O's or
Yeah,
general philosophy?
The X's and O's of it.
Well, I've always liked size. You know, we like having size. You know, we love using our post players. And I always want to be one of the, top 3 or 4 teams in the rebounding in the country every year in our division. Kind of prioritize and make sure we have the ball. And then just teaching good basketball. I don't like running a lot of plays. Just teaching good, solid basketball. And, it's kind of like a video game on game night when you put the guys out there and they're just doing what they know and having the freedom to, they've already worked through mistakes and what's a good shot, what's a bad shot, but allowing to get the most out of their talent instead of restricting them by saying every time down the floor you have to do this thing. So that's kind of been the general philosophy. And like I said, we've had good success doing it that way, and feel like we get the most out of the talent that we have.
Yeah. So I looked over kind of how your team's finished over the years, and in 2020 I noticed that your team finished number 1 in the final poll. And that was, I guess, the first and the only time you guys have gotten number 1. You guys have finished very high consistently, but unfortunately, the year that you guys did finish number 1, it was the COVID year, so there wasn't a tournament. So what was it kind of like to have that success in the regular season, but not being able to showcase it for it on the big stage?
It was hard, but it was super hard on the players because that was one of the best teams we've had. And, we were really, really good. And in all honesty, I just couldn't imagine anyone beating us that, and we made it. We had already made it and won the regional. And so we were in the Elite 8 at that time when they shut it down. Winning 6 national championships, it's great, cut down the nets and all that, but it was disappointing not being able to complete that year with such a great team. I kind of got away from your question there, but it was a sad day having to tell the guys. We just went out for a pre-game meal, and I got the phone call while they were eating, knowing we got back to the hotel. I had to tell them the season was over. So, again, I kind of got away from your question there, but it was difficult.
Yeah. So I was looking over the individual accolades that you've accomplished as a coach, and it's quite impressive. So was this success as a coach something you've always envisioned, or was it just something that's kind of happened over the years?
Certainly didn't envision anything, and certainly didn't, worry about it or think about it. The guys always ask me, why I schedule the way I do, and we play such a tough schedule, and my answer is always the same. I said, my goal is to do well in the tournament at the end of the year. We're not in the conference, so that's really what we're playing for at the end of the year. And I said, the record doesn't go beside your name, it goes beside my name, and I don't care what my record is. But when I started coaching, I mentioned about they offered me the job. How that actually came about was at the end of that year when the coach resigned, I walked into the AD's office because I was just an interim coach. I didn't mean to even be the coach. And he looked at me and he said, I want to ask you something. I remember I pointed my finger at him and I said, don't you dare. Because I knew he was going to ask me to be the coach. And I said, no. I didn't want to coach. I wanted to watch my son play college ball. And he was on the team. And I turned him down. And then when I told my son and my wife about it, they said, you should do it. It was my son's senior year, and you should do it. It'd be fun. And so I agreed to do it for 1 year. So I never set out to be a college coach. It just kind of happened. So I never, as a player, you want to win. You've always thought about it. You dream about, winning championships or whatever. As a coach, I never thought about it. When we got through that first year and we won the national championship, then it was like, that was pretty fun. Let's do it. My assistant coach that I asked, college coach, he and I remained friends, and I said, hey, I'm going to be a college coach, never done it before. Do you want to help me? And every year I would say, that was fun. Do you want to do it again? And after about 6 or 7 years, he said, you can quit asking me. I'll just do it every year that you do. And, we went through 17 seasons at Grace for Kuiper College. But he finally retired. So, never meant for it to happen, so I never thought about all those things.
Gotcha. Turner, I'll give it back to you.
So you just talked about Kuiper College. So after coaching a while at Grace, how different did it feel like transitioning over to Kuiper?
Well, like I said, being a Buckeye fan, it was like me going to work for Michigan. I mean, Kuiper, whenever they had sports way back, they were our rival, our enemy, and didn't care for them much. Not because of the school or anything like that. It was they were our rivals, and they were 15 minutes away. So it was a little difficult in the sense of I have to wear Kuiper purple now, but just at this point in my life, I had two coaches. I had my assistant AD who played for me, and then was assistant AD for almost 10 years. And another guy that played 4 years was our JV coach. And I really wanted to see them continue at Grace because I knew that they loved it and they were invested in it. And I wanted to see Grace continue well. And I heard somebody say once that when you're in a relay race and you're carrying the baton, you don't pass the baton off when you're crawling, to that next person and you got nothing left and you hand it to them when you're totally spent. You give it to them when you're at your peak and things are going well so they can continue and not lose pace. And I thought about that at the same time. And I thought, I'm getting older, I'll be 64, and I thought it's a great time to hand the baton off to guys that really care about it. And Kuiper kind of came calling and wanted to build their program, and I really enjoyed that part of it. And I actually told them I didn't want to coach anymore, but they said I had to. It was part of the deal. So I'm happy to be there and happy to be building the program. Now that I'm back in the gym again, I'm already ready, looking forward to coaching. We had one little summer thing we did, and my assistant coach said, I kind of missed this. I said, yeah, I kind of did too after a year off.
So in 2021, you were inducted into the NCCAA Hall of Fame. How did that feel?
Total shock, 100% shock. And I was standing in a mall at the food court, and I was ordering some Chinese food, and I got a call from Dan Wood, and I remember him saying, sometimes I call with good news, sometimes I call with bad news. He said, this is good news. And he said, you've been voted in to the Hall of Fame, and congratulated me. I never once thought of that, ever. But when he told me, I couldn't even talk, and tears started coming down running down my eyes. And I'm sure the person across from me thought something, maybe they give me a hot pepper in my orange chicken or something. And I couldn't even talk. I was so shocked. And like I said, I didn't think it meant anything to me because I didn't think about it. But once it happened, it was like, I can't believe it. So it was a great feeling. I don't know that I deserve it, but it's just really nice to kind of culminate, a career.
So I'm gonna change topics a little bit. From the just basketball point of view in general. I always ask this question, and it's a tough question. Who
Okay.
who do you think is better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James?
Easy for me, Michael Jordan.
Yeah.
And can I give my reason?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Well, first off, I'm from Ohio. So when LeBron was from Ohio, obviously I'm very proud that it was a fellow Buckeye, doing so great and all that. But I think the difference for me was attitude. Michael Jordan never had to claim he was the best player, and he put it in perspective. Like, it's tough to compare guys from this generation to other generations. So for me, it's not necessarily play; it's more attitude. But I just felt like Michael Jordan demanded so much from his teammates. Probably was a pain in the backside most of the time to his teammates, but for me, that's the kind of teammate I would want, and so that's why I rank him. LeBron's a great player. I probably have him number 2,
Yeah.
and but I just think Michael Jordan meant more to his team than LeBron has to his teams.
So whenever you're recruiting, what are some of the little things that you look at that like maybe other coaches don't?
There's kind of a package. I look at, GPA. I talk to high school coaches. They're mostly character things. Um, you know, with so much basketball being played at AAU and personal trainers, there's so much talent out there. It's just insane. So I won't put anybody on my team without talking to their parents. You can learn a lot about a player from their parents. And another big thing I put on is I give guys a little test, and I may see somebody play and give them my card or whatever, but I'll say, hey, can we talk? And if they say yes, I'll say, what day can you call me? And if they say I can call you on Wednesday, I'll say, okay, I'll expect your call on Wednesday. And if they don't call me, it's a really big strike against them. Because I want to know how they communicate. If I send them a text and they don't respond, that kind of gives me an idea of how they're going to be on the court. So I'm looking for guys that communicate. I'm looking at parents. And it doesn't have to be, it can be single family or single parent, situations, or I've had players that live with grandma and grandpa. But I want to talk to them first, because when they're asking me questions about, coach, is there a curfew on the road? And, I know that they're, concerned like I am about players, and that's really important to me. So communication, parents, if they don't know their GPA, when I talk to them, I stop the conversation and I say, call me when you know what it is. And that's another big strike. But that's pretty much what we're looking at.
So one question I have about that is with do you care if the recruit has transferred to multiple high schools?
If they go into more than one high school or college?
High schools. They're just going to 2 or 3 high schools in their high school career.
Yeah, that's a red flag, certainly. But sometimes if there's a good, dad's job or mom's job that has moved them, but if they're chasing the dream, I don't want them chasing the dream of my place. Just like a kid has gone to too many colleges. Kids say, there was a problem with the coach in high school or college, or I didn't get along with the coach. That's another red flag. I want guys that can work things out with the coaches. I know sometimes there are issues, but I want guys that'll stay, work it out. So yeah, it definitely is a red flag.
Mm-hmm. So you talked about. Oh, did you have something else?
No.
Oh, sorry. So you talked about size a little bit, like in the beginning, and I always ask this to coaches. With shooting in general being just like revolutionized, like I mean, and like more promoted, do you see the traditional big man overall, just in the whole like entire game of basketball, like trying to like, I mean, do you see it like dissolving, or do you think there's still like a big use for it?
I think there's still a big use for it at any level. The big men are harder and harder to find, meaning guys that'll stay by the post, or get down on the post. But because, like you said, I mean, the evolution of basketball is everybody can shoot a three now. But I we've used I've had guys that aren't traditional post players. If we've had trouble getting a post or a certain post didn't develop like we thought, a couple years ago I had a 6'5" guy who for us is a 2 or 3 typically. That he was just great at the post, but he was a guard, and we utilized him. We just rode him a few games, and he would take his man down the post because we were big at every position, so it wasn't like they could switch off, and we still pound that inside. So I think there's still a great part of the game that says you can get the ball in the post. We've always said good things happen when you get it inside, whether it's kickouts or post moves or cutters or whatever. I still think there's a good reason for the post.
Landon, we'll go back to you.
All right. Coach, could you just kind of talk about the love that you have for coaching and what it is that you love so much about it?
That's a really easy one for me. I'm competitive. I do like to win, but I have had games where I can see that we're not going to win, where other coaches would mix it up and, try something different and really press. I just accept the fact that the team's better than us, and I try to get guys in and get them experience because I really love pouring into my guys. And I mean that spiritually. I mean that I want my guys to be great members of the community when they're done, be able to handle a job, being married, having kids, all those things. We want to pour into those guys in every way that we can. And that's what I get out of it. And I tell every player, every recruit, when they come in, and I try to tell them in front of the parents that my number one goal for you isn't that you're going to be a better basketball player. You're going to be better, not because we're great coaches, but because we're going to spend so much time in the gym and learning and all that. You're going to get better. But my goal for you is to see you in heaven someday. And I want them to know that right out of the gate. And so parents know, that it's not going to be just about basketball with this coaching staff. It's going to be about getting you on a different path or helping you along the path that you're on. So, easy question. That's my number one love for coaching.
Yeah, and so we've kind of talked about already the individual accolades and the success you've had as a coach. So kind of talk about, the coaching staff that you've had around you and the credit that goes to them and the credit that they deserve for the success you've had.
That's a great question. I don't get that very often, so I'm glad you allow me to talk about that. Like I said, my college coach coached with me for 17 years, and he sat right to my left, and I was constantly saying, write this down, meaning I would see something I want to work on in practice or that I wanted to talk at halftime. And I've never had a technical foul, so I'm pretty mild, but I would bounce things off him sometimes, and I would be upset about this or that, or maybe the officiating, or maybe how we were playing, or whatever. And not that I took it out on him, but he knew that I wasn't directing it at him, and he was really good about that. His name is Dan George. My other coach, Lee Ash, has been with me 10 years. I've known him longer than that, and he made the move to Kuiper with me, and he loves defense. So he's kind of the defensive coordinator. I'm the offensive coordinator, and we kind of do it like football. We meet in the early in the season. We talk about who our, what our talent is, what can we do this year offensively, defensively, and then we work on individually offense and his defense. And he just does a great job. But what he's really, really good about again is he'll say, "Hey, I want to do this," and I'll say, "Great, go ahead," and he just does it. But sometimes he'll say, "This would really work right now," and I would say, "No, I want to do this," and I'm talking defensively. He never says the word. Sometimes he'll say, "Are you sure?" And if I say yes, he doesn't argue with me. He just says okay, and he does it. And he's just really good about I don't want to say doing things my way, but he'll press his case if he needs to, but he won't stand there and argue about it. And but his goal is the same as mine with the players, and that's what's really great. We're on the same page with that. I've had other assistant coaches, but most of them have been student assistants that wanted to, get some experience for a year and then move on. Or we've had, when even if they've come back and coached for a year, just to get something on their resume. So it's basically been the three of us for the most part.
Gotcha. So, after a loss, you've always think about what you could have done different to win the game. Has there ever been a moment that sticks out to you as a coach where you wish you could have done something different?
Different during the game?
Yeah.
When we get to the locker room after the game, I treat wins and losses the same. Meaning if we won, I say, "Great job. Proud of you guys. The buses, get out, spend some time with your family. The bus is going to leave at this time," or something like that. When we lose, it's the same thing. I'm proud of the effort. There are things we got to work on. Let's come back to practice, tomorrow or Monday or whatever, and let's get better. The bus leaves at this time. Because I want to think about it, and I want to go to my list where the coach has written my thoughts down during the game. And every game I have said, "I wish I would have done that," or "I wish I would have done that sooner," or "I wish I wouldn't have done that." So I think every coach would say that, but I just want my guys to know that regardless of the mistakes that I made, obviously they've made mistakes. They show up in the turnover category or not knowing what we were doing or taking a bad shot or whatever. After a game is not the time to go over that. We'll handle it in practice. So I do make mistakes every game, but I don't beat myself up either because I don't want the players beating themselves up. Let's just fix it and get better.
Yeah, and my last question for you, and it's one that I like to ask a lot of coaches, is for anyone out there that is looking to become a coach or even thinking about it, what are some tips that you might give them to prepare for that job?
I would say write down what's important to you as a coach. And if your first thing is that I want to move up and, be D1 or something, don't write things down like that. Write things as a coach. What are your goals as a coach? And then kind of do what you guys are doing. Talk to coaches and pull the best from each coach. Don't say, "I want to be like that coach," because he might do some things that you see behind the scenes that you don't like. Learn, write down the things that you want to be as a coach. If you want to be a mentor, are you all about winning? And then you can get into X's and O's, but write down, this is the coach that I want to be. And then find guys that do that particular thing the way you want it done. Don't just go after one coach or one style because he might have some things in there that you don't like or that don't fit your personality. And then obviously get some experience. Be a student assistant or just ask to be a assistant coach or volunteer assistant or just sit in on practices. and again, watch how coaches do things, or make phone calls. You know, it's what you guys are doing would be great for coaches or people that want to be coaches to do. And like I said, glean the best from each coach.
Gotcha. All right, Terry, I'll turn to Steve.
Coach, what changes would you like to see to any level of basketball?
I'm not going to touch too much on the pros because, like I said, that's become entertainment. Um, there's a few things that I really just irritate me, and that is when somebody shoots a three and they're bringing the arrow out of the quiver and shooting it, or holding up three, and I tell my players aren't allowed to do that stuff because I've asked them, what should we do when you miss one? You know, you're doing your thing when you make one. What should other people do when you miss one? You're supposed to make it. You shouldn't celebrate it. You made it. That's what you're supposed to do. So you haven't done anything over the top. You see what I mean? By that, you've done what you shot it. You were supposed to make it. I was at a 4th, 5th, and 6th grade game watching my grandson, and this little short 4th, 5th grader got the ball and made a shot over somebody, and he did the too small, your too small thing. And I thought, oh my God, these guys are watching the pros. So one of the changes I'd like to see the officials get that back to say, you're not going to taunt in any way. Let's play basketball. Guys that stand over somebody after a dunk or those kind of things. And then they end up losing the game. Like I said, in my practices, we actually give technical fouls in practice. If a coach makes a call and you look at him cross-eyed, or you slam a basketball, or you do any of those, hand signals things or whatever, we actually give you a technical foul, and you have to run. I don't want my guys getting technical for those things. So I'd like them to clean up the game a little bit. Like I said, I'm a little bit old school, but I would hate it to see college basketball get to the level of the pros when, they can do all these other things. So that's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And one other thing is I hate it that they keep making these rule changes to speed up the game. Everything's about speeding up the game nowadays. And they're making rule changes that I don't think are healthy for the sport, in men's and women's, to speed up the game. So
I know that you're a college coach, but what would you advise a 5-star basketball player to do? Go to college like Division I, or would you endorse like the G League Ignite, for example, or overseas?
I think it's whatever's best for the player. Some of these players, they just don't have, families are struggling financially or whatever. If they have a chance to make money and that's what they want to do, that's great. I used to be a little different on that. I used to be a little different on the transfer portal. I always thought, be loyal. If you go somewhere, be loyal and stay. But I don't mind if kids, transfer once. This isn't the first job I ever had. And sometimes you just don't know. But, you still have to be a year out of school to go pro, or a year out of college, 1 year, I guess. Some guys need prep school to get their game ready. I do love it when players finish their education. But I just think it's individual nowadays. What's best for you and your families? And, now that NIL deals are so prevalent, you have a chance to make a little money, I think you should. So I think it's real individual, what's best for that player. But I would seek as much counsel as I could on that.
Mm-hmm. So that's the perfect transition to the next question. What do you think about NIL as a whole?
I'm okay with it. I mean, obviously I have to be. It doesn't really affect my level, but I'm okay with, you know, at the same time, I think colleges are giving you free education, better meals than probably the general population of students get, you know, with team meals and things, getting access to the best trainers and healthcare, and they're paying, like I said, paying their education. They're getting something for participating in sports with the opportunity and the platform to maybe go pro, whether here or overseas or whatever. But at the same time, I'd like to see them limit the NIL deals a little bit more, you know, so they don't get, you know, too crazy, or out of whack with, you know, player number 1 on your team and player number 15 on your team. So, but I'm okay with it. Didn't used to be, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. So the last segment of our podcast is up to you. I mean, do you have anything that you want to talk about or say before we sign off?
No, I think you guys have just. I've done a lot of these kind of things. I think you guys have asked some questions that I've never heard before that are super relevant. So great job on that. And I just really appreciate being able to be on with you guys. Now, who's who is there? I don't know voices. Whose dad is Will?
Mine, Turner.
Okay, Turner. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
He's an awesome dude.
Oh yeah.
I've known him. I knew him when he was a super young coach at Kentucky Christian. I actually got to spend time with him down at the convention this year. He and I wore matching head nets during the community service part and packaged some meals for overseas.
Yeah, he was telling me about that a little bit, and I mean he helps me out with like getting people, and you were definitely high on the list. So I mean I had to get you on for sure, and we appreciate you coming on for sure.
Yeah, thank you very much, Coach.
Certainly my pleasure, and it was the quickest ride home I've ever had.
Glad we could do something for you.
I just pulled into my drive, so I'm sitting here in my driveway, so perfect timing.
Oh, perfect. All right, Coach, we'll let you go here.
Okay. Fellas, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Good luck to you in your endeavors with this podcast.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Coach.
Okay, thanks.
All right, see y'all.